right now.
Is this in the way of the...
No, this is good. We're good. Sir,
Sweet.
Justin,
I love it.
how you doing, man?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me. What are you calling the studio space?
This is Awareone Radio.
Right on.
Awareone Radio.
The garage.
The garage. This man, you have to start somewhere. Yeah, I think.
I love it.
Wait, what's his name? Bill Gates. Who's the other guy that invented Apple? They all started in the garage, man.
The best stuff starts in it. Well, a lot of good stuff starts in a garage.
A lot of
The
stuff.
home
yeah.
businesses and ideas.
You got to start somewhere, man.
Absolutely.
Anyways, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
You're guest number 2.
Right on.
This is podcast number 2 of Awareone Radio. We're going to be on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.
Right on.
And then my website.
You got a haircut for this one?
Yeah, once a week. Once a week. How often do you cut your hair?
My wife cuts it. I've never been to a barber my whole life. My mom cut my hair till I was... Basically, the last haircut she gave me was right before I got married, and then for the last 11 years, my wife cuts my hair. So I've never been to a barber.
Spiffy.
I'm like Samson. Stuff goes wrong when you go to a barber, at least for him.
I can't remember last time I was at a barber.
So we're saving money together.
Saving money, man.
Yeah.
My brother spends $20 a week. I don't understand it.
Well, that's his jam.
That's a meal right there.
Right on.
Anyways, I prepared a couple of questions for you. I think this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my thing when people come here, and I don't know, I'll just have something prepared. I was talking to Joel about the same thing when he's going to come on. He's like, man, I've never done a podcast. And most people I think that are going to be on here have not done a podcast before.
No, I don't think so.
And some people don't even know what it is still, which is kind of crazy. But the first question, since I'm using Awareone as a platform, I want to get into people's heads and their perspectives. So the first question I have is, what does mental health mean to you?
Mental health is something that I'm only recently through family events have gotten more familiar with. As you know, early in my marriage, Krista and I, my wife, went through some brutal stuff. So mentally, that was a huge weight to carry for a lot of years. That's now in the past, and then more recently, my brother was professional animator and just basically worked himself to a breaking point. So he basically collapsed off his desk one day and was homebound with panic attacks and crazy stuff. 6'4", jock, late 20s, healthy guy. So none of us knew what was going on. Was the adrenal shot? What was going on? And some of that was happening, but there was a huge mental component that none of us in our family was really familiar with or knew what to do with. And then once he finally saw the right guy who kind of pointed out this is what's going on, and it's not that complicated to get some serious help, within weeks he was back to operational, like a basic level of operational.
Right.
And then another month or two after that, he was kind of back. So it's become much more real and personal since watching my brother. I got 3 younger brothers, and this is the next one down for me, and we're best buds. So to see your see your best guy go down like that is heavy.
And so you went to go see a psychiatrist or a counselor?
Yeah, a psychologist. So basically, he was having these panic attacks that were getting worse and worse through the months and years, and then just they would come on untriggered. And then one day, our folks were in town visiting, and this is my brother. He's married. He's got 3 kids. Like this is bad time to fall apart. And he basically said to my dad when he was visiting, he's like, "You got to take me into ER. Like something's going on. I feel like I'm dying." And so my dad took him into ER, and that was kind of the kind of a crossroads where he said, "Look, we can bring this up and say we think there's at least some type of mental component to this thing."
Yeah.
And because we know some people in town, a good psychologist is a friend of mine. I said to my dad and my brother when they're in the hospital, I said, "Ask for this guy, have him come talk to you, see what he has to say. Worst case, it has nothing to, it's there's no harm that can be done from it. So best case scenario, he can rule it out or point you in the right direction, or maybe he can help."
Right. And
so sure enough, he said, "Yeah, you've got classic panic attacks from being a perfectionist and overworking and this kind of stuff." And
classic.
Oh, he said he was textbook. He said, within 5 minutes, this guy had him dialed. He said, "This is exactly what you've got. It's common for these high-achieving, young guys or gals working long days.
Just burnt out.
Burnt out. Major burnout. Yeah. And so within weeks of the right kind of help for his case, he made significant improvement. So this was probably about a year ago. So he's been healthy again, body and mind, for about a year, and it's just it's like he's a new man.
That's good. That's good for him. But so when you first started learning about mental health is about a year ago?
I would say on a very personal level, because if it's not something in your wheelhouse or something that you're seeing either personally or through your family or friends, you just there's no reason to kind of search it out. So it kind of came to our door, and so I became, because he's my brother, I was kind of intimately involved in his journey through the 3 years of being out of commission to getting better. So that's when it started to become way more personal, and that's like anything in life. You're not really going to take a serious interest in something in your life, whether it's your finances, your faith, your relationships, whatever it is, until it becomes very personal. Like you've got to have motivation to do it, and often it's got to be something negative that happens, something that really motivates you to do it. Like you don't want to change up your diet unless you start getting health stuff going on. You're just rarely going to, like, we as humans don't typically grow and mature in the really good times. I find 9 times out of 10, it's in the trials, it's in suffering, it's in the tough times that you start to grow, and your maturity fast tracks.
Yeah.
Am I getting off topic?
No. Well, there's a couple roads you took there, but
okay.
Well, like, this is kind of leads up to my next question. Like, for my mental health, I always like to. That's why I want people on the show. That's why I want to start this podcast. I want to learn from other people, And so, when you find yourself into like a place where you're off, you're frustrated, irritated, you're going through a stressor in life. What do you do, like, for a coping mechanism? What's your number one go-to of how you release stress? Working out, something like that, reading, meditating. What is your go-to?
It's a good question. Well, for my life, when my wife was very sick in and out of the hospital for years, I went down to, like, normally I'm a healthy weight for me is like 175, 180, and I went down to 150 something just from the stress.
Oh, wow.
Being a full-time caregiver for my wife for
that's a lot of weight.
For years. Yeah, for me it was tons.
Holy.
So we always lived near a gym while she was going through it, so I would often go to the gym at least every other day, do a long run, some light weights, just something to kind of clear my mind. So for me, physical activity is a huge thing.
Physical.
That's very big. Faith for me is massive. I believe in a God. I believe we're not floating through this life by accident. I think there is purpose, and otherwise, to be honest, I don't know how some people would cope otherwise. I know they do, but when I look at what we went through, when my wife was basically bedridden for years and just in agony, and like, we weren't living. We were very active, sporty, community-minded people, so we were out and about all the time.
Right.
So when the health kicked in, and or kicked out, I guess, and our life kind of fell apart in that sense, there's this major temptation to feel kind of worthless. You don't really have a reason to breathe. Why be here? My life, I can't go out with friends. We can't. At the time, we couldn't have kids. We couldn't live. Couldn't do anything. It was just survival.
Yeah, that's tough. It's tough, for sure.
So it's in those times where there's this tendency to feel like, I mean, when it gets that bad, you toy with the idea of ending it, because it's almost logical. When someone's in that much agony for years without answers, you get to very dark places, and that's a hard thing to communicate to someone who's not going through it or hasn't gone through something of that life and death nature. So going through it, because of our faith, that I said, we do have a reason to live. It's not all about the here and now. There is a bigger game afoot, as it were. It doesn't make today any better. It doesn't relieve the suffering, I don't believe. I think a lot of people confuse faith with something what I call angel insurance. It's kind of a thing.
Yeah, so I've heard that before. Angel insurance.
So basically, it's like, all right, family, we're going on a long road trip. Let's all pray together. So So God will protect us and give his angels to protect
Yeah,
the van. And I'm
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at our life for those like 5 years. I'm like, we took out the wrong policy, bro.
No doubt. Well, man, because it all comes back to you doing something, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, you can always you have faith and you can believe in something, and you can or you pray, whatever it is that you do for that belief. But then ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes back to you taking action in your own life to benefit at the end.
It's a huge part. You have to, well, not give up. You for us, that was our reason to keep going, to fight. So our faith and belief in God did not take away the pain. Like, so once, and no one's immune to suffering. Everyone's got a story. So just believing in God doesn't take away the bad. I think that's a misconception with faith stuff. But it's a reason to go through it. It's like that drive. It's that motivation to endure and to go through. So I'd always listen to very good talks, sermons, good music, good books. Hang around people who are. That was the other thing too. Is that when you're going through a tough time like that, you find out who your really solid friends are. Right. And a lot of times there's this tendency to try to keep certain relationships going in these tough times that are not necessarily the most uplifting to you. Yeah. So it's in those times you really want to make sure that the people in your life, even if it's just a few and a handful, it's better to have a few really good family and friends involved in your dark time, as opposed to trying to keep all these surface friendships going that are really just can often distract you, pull you down, discourage you. Yeah. But there's that pressure to try to keep your life going in these tough times, and I don't always think that's the best way to go. Keep the people close to you who are speaking truth to you, encouraging you, believe you what's going on.
Keep the small circle strong.
Yeah.
Our guy that we talk about, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
He starts with
JP.
He's one of the most uplifting guys to me, just because of the way that he approaches things. But he always says, you got to start with you, and then once you're good, however long that takes, and especially when you get down to that point, like going through that traumatic experience or whatever it is, you have to keep you good, and then your circle good, and then once this is strong, and then you can move out and branch out, community, helping out with everything. Well, however you want to benefit or impact your community, but however long it takes for you to get right. I think that's a huge message to a lot of people. Start with making your bed, make your room good. Start with your space.
Put your house in order before you go and try to.
That's right. Yeah, well, I forget what chapter that was. Maybe chapter 4 or something. I don't know what it is. But anyways, his book. Yeah.
Yeah. Put your own house. Put your own family. Put your own close circle. Your own room. Put it in order. Yeah. And then at that point you can say, okay, I can now go out and offer help or advice to other people. Yeah. It's kind of like on the airplane, put on your own oxygen mask first before you help someone else.
Right. Yeah. Same idea. Yeah, exactly. Man, it's so crazy how so many people don't really understand that. How they don't want to help themselves first, and they always look. I think that's a problem with a lot of people, is that everyone's worried about everyone else instead of worrying about themselves first.
I think there's a pride element. A lot of times we don't want, because we live in a society and a culture that's very individualistic. Not all the world operates like this. Our history is very, it's kind of a new prototype we're trying, where everyone kind of lives in their own in their own houses. Like people would be so much more involved in each other's lives. Like when someone would have kids, you'd have other family members helping, or if someone had to build a new house or a barn, people would come help out. Crops, like everyone was involved in each other's business and lives. Right. And right now we're very much we're much more individualistic. We all kind of pull into our garage, close the door, go in, throw on the TV. Obviously not everybody, but that's so easy to do. Right. And so when you're going through these hard times, it's a lot of times like, look, you go do your thing, you get better, and then let us know when you're ready to hang again.
Yeah, he'll be all right. She'll be all right. Yeah, that type of thing. That's the old school mentality.
Yeah.
But like so where did you grow up again? You grew up on a farm, correct?
Not totally. We grew up. We spent a lot of time in on a ranch in Alberta. But before that, I kind of spent the first half of my childhood in just outside of Ottawa, in Gatineau. So grew up out east, and then moved to Alberta and spent the second, like my teen years through there. So call it 14 to 20 out in Alberta, and then moved here to British Columbia in 2007.
So growing up, when you got to Alberta, though, that's when, well, for me anyways, from when I was like 10 years old to to growing up. I feel like I remember that obviously a lot more than I do my younger years. But that's where you learn a lot of like life skills or whatever. So you being in a small community, you know, you guys you and your family are used to, you know, coming together as one and not being so closed and shut off. Like you're more into the community, right?
I would say so. Like I was very blessed and blessed to have a 2-parent home who were very active in our lives, who loved us, who took a very strong interest in their kids. There was 4 of us boys. My mom was a full-time mom. She gave up her work career, I guess you could say, outside the home, purely by choice to focus on us 4 boys. And so now, all of us being in our late 20s and 30s, it's actually kind of cool to look back and see what that tight family has resulted in. And I don't want to be ashamed of that success, because to kind of give honor to my mom to make that choice, that she valued us so much. And my dad would work his tail off, long days, to provide for, you know, without that second income, that's not always possible.
Especially with 4 boys, yeah.
Especially with 4 boys. I mean, we got a Dutch background, so that helps on the saving and keeping
yeah, no doubt.
keep it
rationing,
keep the burn rate low. But to see the benefit in, I feel it in my character and my who I am, and my 3 younger brothers who they're mostly married with having kids now, and to see that character, that legacy, passed on from parents to their kids in such an active way. And even books like the 12 Rules for Life and a lot of stuff that Jordan Peterson is presenting to the world now is showing this. The psychology and the statistics are proving that this rat race of 2 parents chasing the dream isn't always turning out the benefits that we may hope for out of that, and that the extra stuff, the extra money, the bigger house, the nicer car isn't always translating into happier people. And so even though we had a very simple childhood, used hockey skates type, playing in the backyard, couldn't afford the high-end leagues, but we had a riot playing on backyard rinks as brothers and with friends, that kind of stuff. And then being, and obviously having a church community through our faith, through growing up, all that stuff played into a sense of security. Like we knew who we were comfortable in our skin, and that kind of provided us huge confidence, growing up and moving out and starting families and all that kind of stuff.
That's huge, man. And were you homeschooled?
Homeschooled.
And so this is another like topic that I wanted to talk about too, because I know, and if you ask like a regular person, I'm not a regular, that's kind of like just a person that goes to school, like the majority of people go to public or but they go to school. And so you're the 1%, in my eyes, but most people that you hear that have been homeschooled are either socially awkward or they just can't communicate correctly. But, when I talk to you.
Have you been to public school?
Yes, I have.
You describing homeschoolers or public school?
No, I actually went to a Catholic school my whole life, elementary and high school. It's totally different too.
True.
But
no, it's a good question. It's a good point to bring up, because we did it before it started to gain more popularity. You see a lot of kids who are very talented, say in music or sports, and so homeschool or travel. Their family travels a lot, so homeschool kind of is becoming more popular for people who want to do more a custom lifestyle, as it were. So my wife went to public school, she went to private school and a Christian school, and she had overall positive experience. So I grew up, my mom homeschooled us. We were always given the option. So August, September rolls around, it's like, what do you guys want to do? You guys want to jump in?
Oh, wow.
Most of our friends went to public school. Most of the people we played sports with, all of our circle of friends, most of them were in that system. And for us, for our family, for our style, I like being done work by noon, or schoolwork. So by the time I was 14, I was out picking up balls at the driving range, golf courses. So all of us started working young. I was 16 working at Sport Check. So I would say we had the opportunity to do extra things, whereas the typical standard school system means you're at a certain place for 8 hours or whatever it is. It's your whole day. And not all of that is actively chasing down schoolwork. So I got to give a ton of credit again to my mom and dad, especially my mom, because when we were homeschooled, you're obviously at home doing your school. So we bang that out by noon. We just hammer down, get our school done. And then my mom we'd be in basketball leagues. We would be in soccer leagues, hockey camps. We go to museums. There was in the winter we'd snowboard once a week. So my mom was basically an Uber driver before it happened, cruising us around.
She sounds like a living legend.
She her four boys loving her call her the Beast.
Wow.
Because she not only stayed at home but also homeschooled us all right to high school. Once we got to high school, we started to do correspondence. I would go to high school for a couple courses. I did my math in high school because that's easier to learn with a real teacher there.
Right.
So we weren't totally disconnected from the public education system. But looking back on it, I mean, we've got 3 little boys now, and my wife went through kind of the opposite of what I did growing up.
Right.
And even though she had a fairly positive experience, she just said there's just still so much stuff now, even today, 10, 15 years later, with phones, screens, that
that you can teach.
At home. I was even thinking, even when you're in school, there's so much more negative, dark stuff that kids can be exposed to. The peer pressure is amplified. So now a kid can post something online in whatever social media platform they're using, and all 400 kids from their school see something, for better or for worse. Like, that could be crushing for a kid who hasn't fully matured into their own skin and say, I'm good. So we're actually planning to do a version of homeschool, a custom school, where we can look at our kids on an individual basis and say, okay, what are they good at? What are they bad at? What can we focus on? What can we encourage them to chase? And as far as the social stuff, I think there's a huge misconception with the with what constitutes an emotionally stable kid. So for me, in my teen years, because I would be done school at noon and I could go work at these places, I was with adults all the time.
Right.
And so our little boys now, who aren't even in school yet, are around adults all the time. So a question I ask myself is what are the odds of a kid maturing in a healthy way versus hanging out with a bunch of kids their own age, or hanging out with more grown-ups? So
that's a good point, man.
So, for example, a good example would be I bring my boy to work. When we're going to the paint store, he comes with me. He chats with the people behind the counter mixing the paint, figures out what color's going on, why they shake it up, how long paint's good for, just life skills.
Yeah.
And it's very cool to see. Very cool to see. I don't want to, in any sense, knock the public school or a private school, anything like that, because I don't believe they're bad. I just believe it depends on what is your situation at home. Worse than that school, then you should be going to that school. If your home life happens to be worse than what the public or a private school can offer you, you should be going to school. If in some cases families are blessed enough to have such a healthy environment at home that it could actually be a step sideways or down for a kid, depending again on their personality. Are they more A-type? Are they more sensitive? If a kid's more sensitive, then bullying will have a far more scarring effect on them than someone who's a little more comfortable in their own skin.
Right.
Basically. So it's different for everybody. We had a fantastic experience with homeschool. There is no perfect way of doing it. There is no perfect way of doing it. You kind of stumble through it at different areas, but I don't know. I've always thought myself a little strange, so maybe that's because of homeschooling, but maybe that's why we're friends.
No, honestly, Justin, you're probably one of the coolest people, man. Like I say, and you're Mr. Vernon to me. I don't know. Like you just have that personality, that everyone wants to be around, and in my eyes, and it's fascinating to me because I don't know too many people that have been homeschooled, and all these, everyone's perspective is all, whoever gets homeschooled is like, stay away from them, they're weird, right. They don't know how to talk to people, and it's like you're the total opposite, So, one, I want to meet the Beast.
Totally.
and two, like,
She's
congratulations, awesome. Like to her for raising you and your brothers the way that, and then now what you're doing and implementing the skills that your parents taught you into what you're doing. It's just really cool.
It carries through.
It's just so funny how your environment and your parents like shape you, and how much of an impact that is on you the rest of your life.
Huge. Whether you want it to be or not.
Yeah.
What shocked me reading some of these books, some work by Jordan Peterson and some other psychologists, is that a kid, a boy or a girl, their compass for life is pretty much set in concrete by the time they're 5, which I was shocked by. So the sense of like the odds of everything from bankruptcy, divorce, incarceration, success at work, personality, security, all these big things. The statistics show that the childhood they had between 0 and 5 plays a surprisingly large factor in their kind of direction and success or failure in their life from such an early age. And I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea. So I and not very few kids are blessed enough to be in a home at that age, because there's nothing you can do at 3 or 4. I mean, you're born and you're just there. Well, what's going to happen to you is going to happen to you. So your hands are kind of tied.
Yeah.
And usually, unfortunately, the stats say it's mediocre to bad most of the time.
Right.
For whatever, because maybe the parents, that was done to them and they literally didn't know better. There's just a lack of knowledge of what to do and how to have a good end result years later.
Right. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to do, is they need to reflect on, if whether they had a good or a bad upbringing, like childhood. They have to look at it and then observe it, think about it, and then learn from it, rather than like whoever, like when I was growing up, there's a couple of traits where I look back now. I go back east to visit my family and see my dad sometimes, and the traits that a couple really good ones that I've acquired from him, but then the other ones I see, it's like oh, that's why I do this.
Totally.
Okay, now I have to stop that.
Right.
Because I don't want to be a certain way.
Right.
Not that saying, like, I love my dad. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's taught me many important skills in life. But then there's things that he learned from his parents.
That's right.
That he had no control over. He was a kid. He was just there, and that's what he got. But recognizing it is the most important thing. And then being aware of it.
Yes.
And then moving forward. So that's why I'm trying to understand a lot of people and what they go through, and why you shouldn't judge people.
Yeah,
either.
I'm going to be less of an exciting story. Like, I don't come from a crazy background of gang life and drug use and crazy stuff. I'm kind of coming, which maybe which I don't think is the norm, but I'm coming from a very blessed background, and I guess I would want to be that, to be an encouragement to someone, and say you don't have to go through or put your kids through a lot of dark times for them to come out. But regardless, it's like what you're saying. Like, you need to be aware of, one, what you were born into, what stuff would affect you. And then as you grow up and move out into the world, what are you dealing with? And a lot of it was done to you. Like, when I was a kid, I had no control over how, what kind of environment my parents put me in. Thankfully, I was blessed to have a very good one.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends and family were not that, and so either way, you need to be kind of aware of what you have. So for example, I need to know where I am maybe very secure in a certain area, and if someone I know is a good friend had a completely different upbringing and they're not secure in that area, I need to be aware of that's why.
Yeah.
And to be very understanding of that. Again, there's no bulletproof childhood to put someone into the world in a 100% guarantee success way. I mean, even my brother grew up the same as me, and he had a breakdown for years.
Yeah.
So the mental side of it, which is what we're kind of the theme of the show here is that, and so regardless of that, he didn't get better until he was fully aware of what was going on in his life. He needed to know, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, why am I feeling this way? And then once you figured that out, it was awesome. Like, then there's hope. There's like, okay, there's a solution. And
then it's a new direction.
Totally new direction.
And that's and man, that's literally ever since last year when I started looking into this mental health stuff and mental toughness. That's a whole different thing. But once I got my mind kind of where I wanted it to be, then it was just like, well, what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. And I think many other people that go through those experiences, if they can come to terms with themselves and understand what they went through, and then continue on and keep going, and then start a new path or a new idea or a new chapter, that's.
And I think a lot of these, as when you do kind of get going on the right path, we'll say, I wouldn't say to people, don't be discouraged about a speed of progress. Basically, it's as long as it's heading in that direction. So there's lots of things in my life that took a while to improve. It wasn't like this revelation, and then all of a sudden, boom! It's this new life, this new habits, new way of seeing the world. Like, we don't change quickly as humans. It's slow change. So you might learn something and say, okay, I want to start on this pathway, and then it's good to write it down, what these little steps I'm going to do to put my life more in order, to improve.
Right.
But to recognize it's not going to be overnight. As long as you're a little bit more focused and improve just a little bit more than yesterday, the week before, that's fantastic. Just to be in that direction. But don't be discouraged if it's not like, boom, it's a whole new life a week later.
It's going to take time.
It's going to take time. It's going to take work.
Yeah.
Nothing in my life of any serious value or something I'm very proud of has not come with a lot of effort, a lot of work, focus, endurance. But that's like in any life, whether it's family, marriage, work, faith, whatever it is, it takes effort.
Yeah.
It takes effort. I don't like the word work because people view work differently. But effort. It takes.
Right.
You're gonna burn physical and emotional calories to get to a certain point.
Definitely.
You can't get there without it.
Well, that's one of my next questions for you, man, because you do real estate, you have a family, you're a very social person, you have to be talking to people all the time when it comes to real estate, and communication, building rapport is key for you. You're involved in the community, your church, you're still active, basketball, whatever sports you do, plus spending time with your kids, making sure that they're on the right path. One question I think, and I look at like a lot of people differently because I'm curious to how busy people balance their life. So when it comes to like balancing everything, how do you do that? How do you do you have a calendar where you say, this is what I'm doing today, or this is like, how do you manage that stuff?
That's a really good question. It's been getting better, slowly but surely. It's getting better.
It's been getting better.
Yeah, like as far as my managing it.
Okay.
Because as a real estate guy, you're self-employed. It's a family business, so I'm part owner of the business. So it's very much, you could work endless hours. Anytime you're your own business owner, you could easily work around the clock.
Right.
But because I think I look at my wife and my kids as priority, and I think again back to where our culture puts such emphasis on career. Making bank and getting degrees and those are great things. I've been very blessed to have good success in the work world, but it is in my life it's a third or fourth place in priority, and so to balance it you have to know what your priority is before you start to balance. So for example, when you run your own business, in my case real estate, could be anything. You might be doing landscaping or accounting or whatever. You run your own business, so you need to know. Once 4 or 5 o'clock rolls around, it's easy to do another hour or 2 hours. Now, if it's the difference between putting food on the table for your family, you just got to do what you got to do.
Right.
Or work up north or whatever. You got to do these long things. But if you get to the point where it's like, look, if we budget well and we spend our money well, I can come home at 4 or 5 and I can be with my wife, be with my kids.
Right.
Then it's easy to find balance once you know what's important. I think when I struggle to find balance is when I give too much importance to things like work or even my own interests. Like as a dad and a husband, your feelings are borderline irrelevant, and I say that in a good way.
Right.
Because it's like a soldier. I don't feel like going. That's nice.
You need to put your fun side on hold. You mean like the things that you want to do personally?
Yes, and things like I got endless interests and hobbies that I love to do that I don't get to because of that, and I don't even resent my wife or kids because those things have become no less enjoyable to me. My hobbies, my interests, I love all that stuff. Though that is not diminished, but my passion and my focus on my wife and my kids has increased. So, say basketball. You and I both love to play basketball. Basketball for me is definitely a priority and a huge interest of mine in life. But for me, I rank it as a 5 out of 10.
Right.
So my wife, kids, face is like a 10.
Yeah.
So that's going to take a 10 always. So if it comes to the point where I'm feeling okay, I got a free evening. What am I going to do? I've got to play ball and look at my wife and kids. Say, have I spent a time with them that I feel is solid? If yes, then I was like, all right, we'll go play some ball or go do something. That's fine. If I feel like I'm short on that, I won't. It's an easy decision. Right. I should say. So finding, yes, and you prioritize. I always look at trying to be very efficient. So you wake up and in whether you're an employee or employer, or entrepreneur, whatever it is, it's very easy to just be busy and just move around a lot, do stuff. I show up to the office or was working with clients and say what needs to get done, and if And if I'm done, I go home. I go be with my family. So some days it's 3 o'clock. I get to go home a bit early. So why stay at the office and just be busy shuffling and pretending that I'm being productive when I'm not? Some days require staying a bit late, 6, 7, 8. I've had, if you're in a busy season, that's okay. But as far as prioritizing it, yeah, I think once you know where things rank in your life, then it's easy to fall into it. But yeah, I've got like a few apps on my phone that I use heavily through the day to prioritize what's important, what needs to get done today, what can wait a day, what can wait a few hours.
You use apps. What kind of apps?
Well, I'm on Apple, so I use a bunch of their stuff. So the thing is, I've got multiple computers, laptops, and phones just for real estate because I'm always moving around, and it's just a mobile thing now. So yeah. I've got, as long as it all syncs between those systems, it's great. So I use Wunderlist for lists. I've got no joke, like 15, 20 lists going, and you can put reminders on them. I can have
Wunderlist.
It's Wunderlist. I think it's WUND.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Wunderlist. So it's a great app. I use that a ton. My calendar, a few reminder apps. But again, very, very minimal on the tech side. It's very easy to load up your phone with all these fun things.
Yeah.
I even like up until recently, I'm still using, you can laugh, a bit of a Rolodex. Because
what is it?
A Rolodex.
A Rolodex.
Like it's like
it's like one of those things.
It spins and you go through your contacts on paper.
You still use those?
Well,
that's an old.
Up until it's totally old school. The reason why is because people are always people, and we can get distracted by technology. Like the studies are now showing that we're replacing real relationships with online stuff, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Yeah. Like we're all communicating on a tech level instead of a personal level, when the reality is, people haven't changed. We're still people. We still need that human interaction. Yeah, it's huge. So I try to stay away from as much just busy tech that just doesn't do it. I try to keep things very simple. And in my world of people, I try to pretend to be on the other end of that. So if I'm a client of someone, the more personal they are with me, the better. So my lawyer, my accountant, the guy I hired to do our ductwork, furnace cleaning, the more personal it is with them, the less computer or assistant shuffling they give me, the happier I am as a client.
Right.
Because I like talking to people. It's like, hey, call me up, tell me what's good, what's the problem, what do we need to do to fix it, whatever. Yeah. So I try to do that in my business and in my life. Is yes, I use technology as a tool, just like a hammer, a fork. Like it's just a tool. It's not a game. I try to keep it as a separate thing, and that's something that I'm nervous about for kids these days. I sound old when I say kids these days.
Kids these days.
Kids these days.
Kids these days.
Where there's this tendency to look at a screen as a sense of, or as a way just to spend a lot of hours instead of as just a tool. Yeah. Just like a shovel, a chainsaw, like it's something you use to do a specific task. And I think there's a danger in just zoning out on the screen for a while. And I'm obviously guilty of it too. But
I think really everyone's guilty.
Yeah.
Of it.
But less is more. Yeah. You never glance up from 2 hours after YouTube and be like, that was time well spent.
Yeah, no doubt. And everyone does that.
Absolutely.
I love YouTube, man.
I love you too. It's like a different world. Now, it can be phenomenal if you're using it for something good. But again, that's back to the tool thing. So it's been a great reminder for me having kids to say, okay, what do I want to teach them? And I better set a good example because they're watching me. Right. So it's like, Dad, what are you watching? And if I'm just watching sports highlights for too long, it's like, okay, I need to switch out. Or it's like, oh no, I'm learning how to change. I'm watching a YouTube tutorial on how to change the oil in our lawn tractor. You're like, oh, this is cool. Right. This is like a learning thing. It's a tool. I'm using it for a greater thing than just to be consuming. Because tech is so easily to use to just consume. Yeah. And so the brain is just used to being entertained, quick changes, fast-moving images, video, and that's not real life. Like like with your job, you got to stay focused on something for hours at a time. Yeah. You can't just zone out and it's like, I'm bored with this. Can I do something else now? It's like, no. You need to learn that ability to stick with something and push it through. And so, it's been a really good reminder for me having kids to like not use tech as a purely a consumer thing, but to use it as a tool to produce. Yeah. So to use it as, what can I use this tech to help someone, to help my business, to help my family, if I can use it as a good tool to do something instead of just consuming. That's
a huge point. I was talking about this with my mom the other day, because she's not a techie person or whatever, but she watches the news a lot, which is it's not always the best thing. But she says the number one problem is always like these kids on their phones, and that's why like school shootings happen and stuff like that. Like there's obviously different reasons why that stuff happens, but I think a big reason is because we have this tool, this phone here, and everyone just doesn't know how to use it.
Right. Not always used for good.
Yeah. So it's like being given a tool and just not knowing what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But like we're just doing what everyone else is doing with it.
That's right.
Like the quick, easy, our stimulants in our brain that's saying, oh, this feels good. This looks good. This
and
is
you get
funny.
the shot of dopamine when you're on there watching something that interests you. Yeah. Whatever it is. And it's not...
whether it be Michael Jordan's top 50 plays.
You're watching. That's a great
clip. I watch it. I watch way too much of that stuff. But you're right, though. If you're watching the beneficial stuff on how to change the oil, whatever it is, everything is on there.
It's fantastic.
You just have to actually punch it in instead of punching in the wrong stuff.
And you have to have that self-control to just know when you're done that YouTube video changing the oil or changing a part in the fridge or something. Right. Just put it away. Right. And go back. It's almost better just to sit down, read a book, stare out the window, text someone, call someone. Yeah. Do something that's not, picture and video related, that's not really giving you something of long-term benefit in your life. Because back to what I was saying before, anything of serious quality or something that you're proud of in your life takes a lot of hours and a lot of effort to build that. Yeah. So every hour you spend on your phone not doing something productive is an hour away from you building that. So say you want to learn a language, you want to do a podcast. It takes time to set these things up and learn how it all works and get it going. So you have to say no to something else to pursue that thing. So maybe you're doing instruments, you want to improve some stuff in your business, whatever it is. Like you need to not go there. And it's hard. It's very hard because it's so easy. It's like two clicks, and you can be watching video on anything that interests you.
It's so true, man. And learning is the hard part. When you're learning something, for me anyways, it's like how to start a podcast. That there's a lot of steps. How to open a business. How to be a real estate agent. Everything takes so much time. Yeah. But once you learn, you gain confidence from that little skill. Then you learn something new the next day, then the next day, and then it just keeps on building and building and building. And that's how
It's the more self-control you have, the more you're going to benefit. Yeah. Funny enough. And so it's like the more structured your life is, in some ways that's more freeing. Yeah. Some people say, rules are meant to be broken, or they're kind of holding you back. And, I've had chats with people over the years that, you have faith, so those rules are holding you back from having fun and experiencing life. Like, no, these rules are safe. Again, back to having little kids, it's opened my eyes. It's like we got a fence around we got a big yard, and so there's this fence, and over this fence there's like a 12-foot, fairly steep little drop-off, and there's kind of rocks at the bottom and that kind of stuff. And so I tell my kids, look, you can play in this entire yard. It's huge. You can play baseball. You can throw. Yeah,
it's a big yard.
Ball. You can do whatever you want to do. I said, but you don't go on the other side of this fence. And I think, so the rules, the fence is good. It's fantastic. So it keeps you from hurting yourself, really, is what it comes down to.
So if they go over that fence, it's their decision.
It's their decision. They're going to feel that roll and that clunk at the bottom. Yeah. But that fence is there for a good thing. So we can look at the fences in our lives, or the fences that should be there in our lives, as negatives, but I try to see them as positive. It's like there's something that the world operates that I call moral gravity. It's like you can choose to screw someone over business-wise and cheat something. But there's something called moral gravity. Some people call it karma or whatever. Things are going to
moral
come back
gravity.
I call it moral gravity because I believe in a God, and I believe there's certain things that He says. Look, you got freedom to do certain things. You can make certain choices. You can go past the fence and fall off the cliff if you want. I'm not going to stop you, but you can't determine what's going to happen if you do make that choice. Right. You got to know that if you do that, you don't have a say necessarily in the consequences. So if you cheat on your spouse, okay, you're free to go do that. Yeah. But you're not free to choose what's going to happen after that. Right. You've left the compound. Like right. You've crossed the fence. So you're free to do that, but that fence was there to actually for your good. And so there's a strange sense of being free with that type of with those type of rules. So a lot of like Marine military type guys are a good example of a profession that's full of high discipline, high rules, but then they're free to do their mission, with these rules in place. Right. And I think that applies in practical rules like that, and also like moral gravity rules, moral stuff. that is applicable to everyone. And it's, you look at someone and says, look, he's breaking the rules. He's leaving the fence, and he's not getting struck down by lightning. Like, his life isn't falling apart.
Yeah.
It will. Always, 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 always.
Sometime or another.
Sometime or another. It might be 20 years till your sins catch up with you.
Yeah.
But they will. They always do. And so there is a total sense of peace and freedom to know that these rules are in place, and the more I follow them, the better I'm going to do. Funny enough.
Do you think that, I know you believe in God and everything, and like the 10 Commandments and everything.
Yeah.
But do you, like, I know you follow those like set of rules, but then
not every day.
Not every day.
But
So that's what I mean. I know not everyone's perfect.
Totally.
You can't be exactly dead on every time.
No.
But when you're going to make a decision, you have that other voice in your head that's saying, "Oh, this is
100%. I think we all have a conscience. We all know inherently that certain things are good and certain things are bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's built into all of us. But the problem is, if you start ignoring that conscience for a while, it just turns off. Like anything.
Right.
It's like a muscle. You use it, it gets stronger. You don't, it goes away.
You have to You have to catch yourself.
Totally.
In that moment. Yeah.
Totally. And there's, it's like a stoplight, red, yellow, green, to a lot of these things. Like, should I know this? And a lot of times in our gut, and there's a lot of studies that kind of show, like, it's like that feeling in your gut. There's a lot to that. There's a ton to that sense that you have. I look at it through the lens of the Bible of what that is, the conscience about that's a safety mechanism that I believe God's put in us to help us make good decisions.
Right. And
everyone, like, for the most part, everyone agrees that killing someone is bad. For just pick a crazy
for the majority,
For the majority,
yeah.
Or cheating on your spouse, or whatever. These big things that we would all, as a society, agree that they're bad. But why? Well, why do we agree that it's bad?
It's inside.
It's inside.
Yeah.
It's inherently bad, and so we have safety mechanisms set up in our world: cops, laws, courts, our conscience. We have these mechanisms that are in our life that keep our society from tail spinning. Which, if you look at a ton of countries currently operating in the world and history past, you see most don't have those safety mechanisms. You can see where it ends up.
Yeah.
You can look at Rome. Rome, we should all be Romans now based off how much these guys ruled on the planet.
Yeah.
So these guys literally ruled Earth.
Yeah.
There's no reason though that kingdom should have ever fallen. But they started leaving the compound. They started going past the fence. They started, the consciences were all dulled and killed so that people weren't making these good decisions. And it's just a matter of time until that powerhouse of a nation fell apart. So I think that is huge for the success of, it starts in the family, and then it grows out to your community, then your country, and the world. So, start in your own house.
Yeah, start in your own house. Yeah, it's a good point. The Romans.
Yeah.
Back in those days. I don't know anything about that stuff.
I know a little bit. It interests me. I've always been fascinated by that kind of stuff. I'm not good with memories. I don't remember timelines and stuff as well, but it's fascinating to me to see nations come and go who basically, ruled Earth, and yet it still fell apart. Why would that ever fall apart when you're God on Earth basically, and you still can't keep it together?
Yeah.
I always find that kind of stuff fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. One of the next things I wanted to talk to you about with having long-term goals and plans. That's something that I don't struggle with, but I overthink it. I feel sometimes about the future.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people that are going through things, whether it be they're a traumatic thing, depression, anxiety, they have a lot of anxiety about the future. They don't know where they're going to be. And I know personally a lot of people that deal with that type of stuff. So how important is it for you to be living in the present, but also knowing that your future is going to be, looking at the way that you want it to look in the future? So how do you focus on the present?
That's a good question. I'm huge on goals, even if you don't end up achieving them in the same way you think you might. So, for example, my wife and I, usually once a year, we sit down and write our 1 year goal, and then a 3 to 5 year
really?
set of goals. Yeah, all the time.
You sit and write that down?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
I don't know many people that do that. I write down my goals too.
Yeah, nice.
But I feel it's foreign for a lot of people that if they don't have any goals.
I haven't checked. I should ask some people, say, do you write goals down? I find
That's interesting to me.
and then it's fun to go back. So we've done this for the last 10 years, and so it's fun to go back to wherever notebook we're using or whatever and look at what we wrote for the year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. We usually hit 3 out of 4, 7 out of 8. Like it's pretty good for the year. I find the 3 to 5 year ones change more, and that's okay. And that's fine. You got to realize that
I think they're supposed to, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's okay that life kind of takes some direction that you may not bank on.
Yeah.
That's just life, which we learned the hard way with Krista's health stuff. It's like we had goals, we were doing our thing, and then wham, you get
life hit
by a truck on the side of the head. So
yeah.
And you don't account for that. So sometimes those goals go out the window, but I think it's very good to have goals. So I kind of break them up into categories. So I have like goals, my wife and I have goals for our marriage, and that could be simple as like going on a date once a week or every 2 weeks. Like It doesn't have to be these crazy ideas, right? It's these little things that build into a bigger picture. And then with our kids, what's our goal for raising them, for business? What do we have goals for the company, and where do we want to be in so many years? So is there anything we should be doing now to help get there?
Right.
Does the time allow for it with family? If it doesn't, then so be it. So, and then travel, we want to go see places. Goals for our property, what do we want to do to fix it up or do something? So we write all this down, and then we say, okay, what do we need to do on this list for the next month, 2 months to kind of start making this happen? So if we want to go on more dates, we got to line up some babysitters. If I want to be more time with my boys, then I'll carve out a Saturday morning 2-hour slot every Saturday to go driving range or go for a bike ride or whatever. So you can just they're very simple little things.
How often do you guys sit down and be like, is this a monthly thing, this a weekly thing, a yearly thing?
We sit down once every 6 months, I would say, but no more than once a year to sit down and write these goals out. And then what we try to do when we sit down, because life's busy, you're rolling, you don't always have these like Zen moments in the morning. Sit down, like, honey, bring out our goal list and see how we're doing today. It's like you wake up and you got kids, you're running.
No doubt.
But when you make the list, is to put things in practice right away that will help you remember to start doing those little steps to do it. So it's like, okay, we want to go on dates. So I was like, okay, today, call some people, see if we can line up some babysitters or chat with family if they can watch the kids for these times. Right. For work, it's like, okay, I want to start doing this kind of advertising or marketing. It's like, okay, so I put it into go into Wonderlist, and I add my list for work, and I say this is the kind of stuff. So I instantly start doing things to start the plan in motion, because we don't have time to get together every 2 weeks, every month to sit down and do these goal things. But when we do sit down, we take an hour, and then actually we start making those, we start putting them on our daily lists of things to do, so that in a year we've kind of gotten close on a lot of them.
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
I was looking back, like before I started Awareone, I made this little notepad of like just ideas I was going through, and then it is cool to go back on the things that I've written down, and then you've accomplished, and then it's like
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like
because some days you feel like you're just running on an icy treadmill. I'm not getting anywhere.
But then you actually are if you stick to the plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. You might any good idea will have weeks, months, or longer of times where you feel like you're just kind of sliding back, and it's like this isn't working. But you got to give it time, keep plugging away, and if you look at it over a year, you're like, you know what, that was better than watching YouTube still.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. It's huge. It's huge to look back, reflect,
and don't compare. Oh my goodness, it is so easy in today's day and age through YouTube, through Facebook and Instagram to compare to what other people are doing.
It's one of the biggest problems, man.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like, look, just like back in the day before we had all this tech, like you would just know what's going on the farm next door. Like that was all you had to compare to. Now you've got the world to compare to people as far as their talent, their looks, their abilities, their influence, their cash, and like
the gram.
It's craziness. It's like that's not. Even if it is real for someone else, like that's not your story. Like, King Solomon wrote a couple books in the Bible. One's Proverbs, one's Ecclesiastes, and it's just phenomenal life advice he wrote to his kids.
What's it say?
And he said, in Ecclesiastes, he basically wrote, enjoy. How did he write it? Enjoy your life today, because this is your lot in life. I think that's the wording. This is your lot in life, meaning that this is what you're born into. This is your family. This is how much you can or can't do. Enjoy your what's on your plate.
Right.
You're not going to become some famous politician if you were born at a certain time with certain family with certain things, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, pursue excellence and satisfaction in your lot in life, in your environment that you're in, and be happy with that. Because if you're looking at anything you turn on a screen, you see what someone else is up to, and that's not your story.
Right.
And just because someone made it famous doesn't mean they're happy, or just because someone's making crazy money doesn't mean they're any more happy or fulfilled or have purpose. I've had, when my wife was super sick, we were, all the savings disappeared very quickly, and for years lived off help from family. We, bills of hundreds of thousands of dollars in health care, that was all covered by family members. And so that's humbling to do that.
Wow.
And then now to run a business and have a successful real estate career, it's completely the opposite. So I've kind of tasted both, and I realized that it can all disappear. It doesn't make you happy.
Right.
We've gone physically to being very healthy and going for runs and surfing and whatever you want to do, to basically she's bedridden, having seizures for years. So that's been taken away, and now we're back to semi-functional. She's not fully, she can only do so much now, but at the same time, compared to what it was, it's a world difference. So this is our story. It's better than some, it's worse than some, but it's our story. So what Solomon wrote is so true. Like, enjoy your lot in life. This is what you have. Just enjoy it.
I like that.
Enjoy. So
I like that a lot.
Your success doesn't have to be someone else's version of what they're seeing as success, right? And so I don't know.
You can be inspired.
Absolutely. Be encouraged and say, look at that person.
Yeah.
They're killing it. Way to go. You rock. It's
Exactly.
like you look at someone playing an instrument or guitar with, sounds like 4 people are playing it, and it's one guy.
Yeah.
I hate him. But it's like, that's all this guy does.
Yeah.
Like, fantastic. Like, you're not playing guitar 7 hours a day, so don't feel bad. Like, you go do your thing. Like, not to sound cheesy, but kind of like be you, and be okay that other people are succeeding in their way, and you focus on what you have in your life.
Right.
Like, maybe you're a bank teller, and in your mind that wasn't your dream, but it's like, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make you more or less miserable. A different vocation or salary. That's your gig. You got to figure out how to be happy. Like, I've in my own real estate career, each year or most years, I've been blessed that the success increases slightly, and I found my satisfaction or peace about that doesn't always follow. Funny enough.
Really?
Right. Yeah. So making basically more income each year, or it's a progression of success that may or may not continue. Who knows what God has in store? But my sense of safety, of security, of happiness, of joy from that has not changed from when I was back in the day framed houses at $15 an hour. Like, my does that make sense? Like, it's not making me happier. Like, it's useful, it's good, but no matter it's a pipe dream. It's a facade, it's a masquerade that you will get to a certain point, you will marry a certain person, you will have a certain job or a certain income. It doesn't matter what the income is, you will never be fully safe.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. That's a really good point, man. I think about that a lot myself. Because everyone has, a certain, well, I think anyways, everyone has a certain like view of like how they want things to be. And how they think it should be.
Oh,
and
it's a rude awakening if you don't have your headspace good before being with a certain guy or girl, or having kids, or a certain job, or certain experience or travel. Like, those things aren't going to make you happy. I mean, I know everyone kind of hears that, but it's like, they just don't. Like, you can have the most amazing backyard barbecue with somebody's other friends. Like, that could be better. Yeah. If your headspace is good and you're at peace, you're feeling good, then someone traveling Paris, staying in 5 stars, they could be miserable. So it's not circumstances, the outside don't necessarily affect your happiness nearly as much as we would think they do, or maybe even hope they do.
A lot of that, so this back to like talking about how using your phone as a tool. There's a lot of really good people that I've been exposed to, like from the internet. And learning from them and seeing what they go through. But I think what it all comes back down to is just being kind.
Yeah.
A lot of it is being kind just to other people, and then most importantly yourself, which is, I think, a huge thing when it comes to the social media stuff. You know, when these kids are looking at predominantly kids, I believe,
Yeah, the next generation.
that are looking at these phones and seeing these people, but realistically, we see it all the time. But people are super happy. It looks like, but then they're really not. You know, and
No.
super depressed. Like guys that I looked up to growing up, like Robin Williams.
Right.
You know, one of my favorite comedians, actors of all time. You know, like that's just a perfect example of how people can look really happy on screen, but you know, behind closed doors, it's a different world.
Yeah.
You know, and so day to day, you know, I think being kind, that's something that it's changed my life anyways. Just going that extra mile to be, you know, whether it's holding a door for that old lady or what, you know what I mean? Like that little small stuff, it has a huge impact on my mental. And I feel that everyone else that seems genuinely happy, you know, it's just because they're kind people. Not nice, but kind.
No, totally.
You know?
I think sacrifice and serving is something that is becoming more lost, but also becoming more valuable in our culture. So the people that I find are the happiest are the ones that are serving someone else, so or in a profession or a vocation where they're helping a lot of people.
Right.
So I've always said selfishness is wildly overrated.
Selfishness is wildly overrated.
Meaning you wake up in the day and be like, what am I going to do to make me happy?
Yeah.
Let's say you wake up in the day, which none of us do, and say something like, I'm gonna go through today just seeing what I can do to make everyone else around me stoked on life and encourage them and see what I can do to help them.
Right.
Like, we don't do that, but the more we do that end of things away from what do I need to do to make myself happy today, you're going to be so much happier in that. And again, I believe that's the way we're designed. I think we find an alarming amount of peace and satisfaction and purpose in our life when we're helping someone else.
Right.
And sacrificing. Sacrifice is huge. So
Sacrifice.
I was walking, I got my tires changed the other day, and I'm walking down 27th here, one of the main drags in Vernon, and there was these two middle-aged ladies pushing these, looked like teenagers, maybe early 20s, severely handicapped guys in each of their own wheelchairs, and they're just pushing them down, and they're chatting. And a very, very kind of striking scene, and I'm this healthy guy, living a normal life, and I don't have that. I've had seasons of intense caregiving, so I can relate on that sense, looking at these ladies who are sacrificing their whole day, their whole life. I don't know how much they're involved, but with these two guys, but it is a significant amount of, I'm not doing what I want to do today, I'm doing what someone else needs today.
Right.
You know, and you look at that and you're like, those ladies can't be happy. They're not doing anything for themselves this afternoon. They're just caring for these two guys that are in wheelchairs. And happy is maybe not the right word, but at peace, at content. They've got purpose. They sense that their day is not wasted.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by selfishness is wildly overrated. So again, back to I've got the blessing of having kids, and it's opened my eyes to in more real ways in some of these things. So for example, if someone said, look, I got 2 flights to Vegas, and we've got a motorbike race day set, because I ride motorbikes, or I used to ride quite a bit. So someone said, we got a motorbike race day lined up, we got golf, we got good restaurants, it's all covered, let's go for a week. Me as a, before kids would be like, yeah, let's go. It sounds like an awesome week with the guys. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
And then, but now when I've got these little guys, and I don't think I would do it, because at the end of that week, everything that week I've just spent trying to make myself happy, and maybe I do make myself, have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Like that's not a sinful thing to go play golf and ride a motorbike. Like those are awesome things. But when I look at, I said I can't go a full week just like I'm just gonna feel sick spending a whole week doing whatever I want to do. Like I don't. Even though staying at home and wiping noses and changing diapers is harder and it's not as much fun, I'm happier.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, that doesn't make sense.
I think it's just because you care, man. You care about, your family. It comes back to the priorities, man.
Yeah, it's my lot in life. This is my world. This is what is in my wheelhouse. This is what's in my house. This is my world. So that when I'm serving my family, even though it's maybe not what I feel like doing, let's be honest, all the time, it is what, because my wife from those years will have tough mornings. Her head hurts quite a bit, so sleep's not good, and I'm usually with the boys in the morning, and I do breakfast with them and stuff, so I'm changing diapers and getting their little breakfast ready and that kind of stuff. So it's not the most relaxed mornings for that, and I've been doing that for almost 6 years now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still wouldn't trade it for that week of golf, and I don't. Because that's where I just sense that's where I'm supposed to be, and there's a strange sense of contentment in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a general. He's like, I don't want to be back hanging out at the, going out for dinner when my troops are out at the front line. I'm not happy doing that.
You're not eating steak while they're eating craft dinner.
Exactly. Yeah, they're out on the front lines. I need to be with them.
Yeah.
And that's where I just know I need to be, and I'll actually be more content and happy because that's just where I need to be.
Well, man, that's so, like, that's why I look up to you myself. You're one of my favorite people. I told you that, and I think that's what makes you different from a lot of other people, is that you're not selfish. You have responsibilities. People, I think another problem is that people take on responsibilities and they don't know how to be responsible for them. And probably 9 out of 10 guys would take that golfing trip. Like me personally, I probably know guys. I don't know anyone else. You're the 1 out of 10 that would say no. I have other responsibilities. Maybe that's because I have a wide variety of friends of irresponsible people. But no, it's true though.
And there's different stages of life too. So I would find if it was just Krista and I and no kids, I'd probably say, yeah, maybe we'll go do it for 5 days. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I think the problem comes into the family is when the guy. I find the guy. I'm very old school, very traditional with marriage, and so is my wife. So
right.
we structure our home in the sense the buck stops with him. So there's a story of Adam and Eve, right, with the fruit. They're not supposed to eat the fruit.
Right. I think everyone knows that story.
Yeah, totally. So Eve eats the fruit, and then God says, "Okay, why'd you eat the fruit?" And she's like, and then, even though Eve ate the fruit first, God goes to Adam, the guy, and said, like, what are you doing? And I find that interesting that he approached the guy because the buck stops with him. And so as a family and as a family man, whatever happens in my house is ultimately my responsibility, if that makes sense. So in a real estate office, I've got what's called a broker license, which is one up or sideways from a regular realtor. And what that basically means is I'm legally responsible for the actions of the realtors in the office. So if they do something unethical or on purpose or by accident, it comes back to me legally.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I'm the guy to get sued. That's what I do.
Well, you're part business owner too. On top of that, so you wouldn't want
you wouldn't want that. But the point is that you have a sense of you have a reality of responsibility. And so, like what you were saying about guys and girls taking responsibility, and there's that in the business, and same with the family. So whatever happens in the family, as the man, as the husband, as the dad, I'm the drummer of the family. I set the beat.
Right.
I'm not any more important. My wife and I are equal. She does her thing. I do my thing.
Yeah.
My thing involves setting the tone for the family for across the board. We agree we're a total team, and she helps, and she kind of executes it basically. She's there full time with the kids, and she's phenomenal. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Always take your time picking your wife. That's some advice I give
no doubt.
to the guys and the girls. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. be patient for the right.
Yeah, be patient.
Be patient for the right.
Be patient. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's that sense of peace being the guy that serves the family, and that doesn't mean I have a good attitude all the time. Like I have dark thoughts and it, like anybody. But the point is, are you slowly but surely kind of going in that direction, making those little steps to ensure you're going to have more success in your family? That'd be probably the thing I would hammer on in all this is your family. If you get your household in order, so much more of your life is so much easier to have success in.
Right.
Your friends, your interests, your business. If your home life if you're focusing on that and you don't buy into the cultural push that career is everything, that the guy and the girl should be out there hustling and
making money, keeping up with the Joneses.
Absolutely, totally, it's a real thing. And your kids basically take a back seat, and you're like, yeah, I tuck my kids in, I read them a story. I'm like, that's not going to cut it. Right. I read Shoe Dog, the story about Phil Knight, the guy who started Nike.
Oh yeah,
and he was an unbelievable workaholic, which isn't surprising for guys like that, like Gates and Steve Jobs and these kind of notable guys. But and Phil Knight has two boys, and he he'd come home late at night, read them a quick story as they were drifting off, and that's it, and back to the office, like total workaholic. And that's basically in the book is his biggest regret is his lack of time and focus on his wife and kids, and he just gave it all to the work. So make sure that, I would say it's a good reminder for me too, is what are you giving the best of you to?
Right.
What you don't want to come home just bagged at the end of the day and have nothing, left over for your family. You want to make sure they're having the best, because if they're doing well and your relationships with them are good or constantly improving, then the other things are far easier to find success. And you leave your house from a place of peace, excitement, health, that and mentally you're just way more settled.
Right.
Because if Chris and I have a bad day, which we have bad days, let's get that out in the open.
Everyone does.
That's gonna happen.
Everyone does.
So we're not on the same page, and it's like a couple days of kind of awkwardness. We're not really in a groove. Yeah. And we've been married 11 years now. So if anyone's listening who's been in a long-term relationship, you know that happens.
Congratulations, by the way. It's a long time.
Yeah.
I
guess so.
Going off topic, there was like 4 million marriages last year, and
wow,
in North America.
That's cool.
And there was like in the first year, there's a 51% rate of divorces within the first year.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
It's crazy.
It doesn't surprise me. So it's it's I'm very, very blessed, but it's like it's something that is worth fighting for. I compare marriage to a car. So if you want to buy a car, 100%, and I'll tell you why. I know it's a dangerous way to start.
I was just gonna say for girls listening to this.
Yeah, but hear me out. Your marriage is like a car, and so you buy a car new. It's a nice car. It's got some good features, and it's really exciting. So anyone can have that sweet marriage for the first few years, and it's awesome, and it's lovey-dovey, and then that 51% kicks in. Yeah. You start becoming these statistics. And then, but what happens if you can fight through that and work it through, and every marriage goes through times of struggle. Like I said, anything good has times of struggle.
Right.
And so it's like owning this car in the sense that the warranty's off, the new leather smells kind of faded. Yeah. And so after kind of 5 years, it's still a nice car, but that's when people kind of stop maintaining it. You stop shampooing the carpets, you stop doing the oil as often as you should. Like let those tires run long. We'll do the tranny stuff next time. Right. You stop maintaining it, and so no wonder the car blows up and it fades apart and it looks like junk. I'm like, this car's 10 years old. It's like, yeah, but you haven't been maintaining it. And it's like a marriage, because it's not an exciting time to maintain a car. Like between age 5 and 15, a car is not super exciting to maintain, because it's not new that it's like super cool and exciting, right, and new and all that. But it's not, but here's the cool thing. Here's the point of the story is once you get through that year 5 to 15 and you're raising kids and you tough it out and you actually get to the other side. And if you've maintained the car through it, now what you start getting into vintage stage. Vintage cars are the coolest cars.
I love old cars.
Like, would you want a '67 Shelby or a new one?
I would.
It's
like
not a question.
That's not even a thing.
It's not even a question. Like, because there's so much more rare to find an old one in such good shape. Just like it's so rare to find a relationship that's old and in such good shape.
Right. And
so an old car that's been well maintained is like an old marriage that's been well maintained. It's cool. Yeah. Like, these guys are like on one page. They're kind of, you're one with the car. Like, it is. Yeah. And it's something that people notice, like, look at that car going by. That's so cool. I'd love a car like that. Yeah, man, but it
takes work.
It's a lot of oil changes. It's a lot of paint polishing. It's a lot of maintaining when you don't feel like it. When that car is 18 years old and you're like, yeah, it's not really new and it's not really vintage yet. Right. But you got to put in that effort to keep it going, because on the other side, you're going to have a vintage car, and that's going to be cooler than even a new car.
Yeah, no, that's
what do you think of my analogy?
That's a good point. My car is 18 years old.
So there you go. Hangs up.
It takes a lot of work to keep it in good shape.
It's almost cool again.
I don't think too many people think my car is cool. I want a Tesla, man. I want a Tesla. Nice. I think that's the coolest car. But old cars, man, you're right. If you take care of them. I think there was a good, one of my favorite human beings that I follow is David Goggins, the guy I told you about. Like the Marine, the book called Can't Hurt Me.
Right, yeah.
If anyone hasn't read that, it's a great book. You should definitely go listen to it. Or read it, sorry. But he talks about how when you're going for a job interview,
right,
how you feel at the beginning of the job. and then it kind of just deteriorates. When you get the job, you're all excited, you're pumped, you go to work with your lunch all packed, cap is straight, shirt buttoned up, blah, blah, blah.
It's kind of a novelty.
Exactly. But then over time, you might get late once a week. You might call in sick one day. It's
the grind.
It's the grind. But I think when
there's glory in the grind.
There's so much glory. I love because I never call in sick.
Right.
Never call in sick, even if I'm sick.
Right.
I'm never calling in sick, just because it gives me that mental I'm doing this. I'm showing up. I'm here.
Yeah.
No matter what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Everyone needs.
So everyone's listening knows this about Derek.
Yeah.
We had a gold medal game. I think it was a league or two back, and I think it was the final game of the year, and it happened to be on a shift Derek was on. I said, Derek, should we have this chat?
Sorry.
Are you coming? He's like, I knew the answer already, and I was like, that's cool, because you can respect that. Right?
Yeah.
There's glory in that grind of being consistent and dependable and sticking to your commitments.
Right. You have to. And that's what builds the momentum. That's what builds your confidence. And that's how you become better, I believe. Because then you reflect and it's like, oh, wow, I did that. I have the personality to keep on going and striving to be like the person I want to be.
And if you handle those little things or smaller things and you make good decisions there, then you will continue to make those good decisions with bigger things in your life.
Right.
If you're smart with $20, you'll be smart with $200,000. It's the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good lesson to learn. And I think it takes a long, long time. Well, for me anyways, I'm only 27. I know you only look 24, but you're what, in the early 30s.
Early 30s. The gray's coming in pretty good on the side.
That's a nice salt and pepper. That's more pepper than salt, that's for sure.
Going for the George Clooney.
But how long did it take you to realize that, you have to it takes a lot of momentum. It didn't take you too long, obviously. Where you have to look at yourself in a perspective and be like, okay, well, this is going to take a certain amount of time.
I mean, again, back credit to my folks. They really painted a good picture of that when I was young. My dad, very consistent, hard worker. So you just kind of, even if he didn't even have to ever tell me to be a hard worker. Never had to say those words. It was not needed. He was just living it. And then my mom kind of taking care of us day to day. If we did something out of line or we committed to a project, she made sure we stuck it through. So if we were, mean to a neighbor kid, I got a couple vivid memories of she walked us over and said, knock on the door. We're going to say sorry. We're going to make this right.
Really?
Yeah. And so you made sure that if you're going to muck up again, you'd be okay with those consequences. So
that's awesome.
She followed through. And then I had a job when I was age between 10 and 12, something like that. And I walked the neighbor's dog Monday to Friday.
Nice.
Because they were at work and they paid me something like $2 a walk.
That's $10 a week.
$10 a week or something like that. It was, and so as a kid, and I saved. So every year, what is that? 550 times 10. So I'd make about $500 a year, and I did that for 2 or 3 years. And I saved up close to $1,500 as a little kid to buy a new guitar.
Wow.
So little things like that as a kid, it's it's only $2 a day or $3, whatever it was, but it's that small building. So even as a kid, I was fortunate enough to kind of see that result of a long time of little bricks being stacked on little bricks to eventually you got a castle.
That's right.
And so I remember walking into the guitar shop and putting in my order for this guitar that I've wanted forever, this $1,500 guitar that I walked a dog for years for. Whoa. When I was 12.
Big feeling right there.
Huge.
You must have felt like a god.
Oh, I was like, I got it. It was very satisfying. It was very satisfying because it's all those cold, sunny, rainy, whatever the weather, you're walking this dog.
Yeah.
And so, because we were homeschooled, we have these little side gigs and stuff because you're not doing school all day. So this is one of the jobs. So I'd walk the dog every day. And
that's awesome.
Fantastic dog.
Wow. Man, that's a crazy story.
Yeah.
I love the perseverance in that, man.
Well, and it's like I said, it's small stuff, but then that has helped me in more grown-up things as you kind of become an adult and get married, have kids. All this stuff is that nothing's different. We're who we are as kids. I mean, really, if we're honest, we're just more grown-up versions of that.
Yeah.
Typically, hopefully an improved version, but
hopefully,
but we're not wildly different than who we are as kids, and so it's anyway. But something to be said for that, grinding it out.
Man, the first thing I think about when you talk about long term, I did something this year. I ran a marathon. I told you about that, and like what it felt like to get past the ending line when I trained for like 5 months, which I should have trained a little bit longer because I didn't reach my goal in the time. But still, like just to feel like that you accomplished something at the end of a big thing that you've been prepping for a certain amount of time. It's just huge. It's just huge.
Totally. I was super impressed that you did that. Did it take a lot of training, or were you kind of already ready to go?
Man, when I decided to do it, it was like the beginning of last December. And then I just decided, I want to do a big marathon. And the biggest one was the Vancouver one in May. So I had a certain amount of time. I was like, this is plenty of time for me to do that. So yeah, and then once you do it, man, just like you purchasing the guitar.
Feeling.
It's very, very, it's big, man.
It's so much more satisfying to put in all that effort and then get that reward at the end, whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Whatever's worthwhile for the prize is worthwhile putting in the grind for.
It's huge, man. Well, Justin, I'm gonna wrap things up here real quick, but I really appreciate you coming through, man. And
I'm honored. This is great.
This is
I
one
hope
of
the
many.
podcast continues.
It's definitely going to be something that I want to do for a long period of time, and man, meeting more interesting people like yourself, man, and it's just I'm privileged to be able to even do this, so it's really cool.
I'm stoked you're doing it, and even just bringing awareness to the Okanagan mental health. I like that you're keeping it close, kind of bite size of the Okanagan, and just help the people close to us. I think that's a good reminder.
Right.
Like we're talking about the YouTube and the internet stuff. It's so easy to try to help the world. It's like, let's start with what's close to you. Start with a real person very close to you. And so, I'm super glad you're kind of narrowing in on our little part of the world and helping real people here. And hopefully this has been maybe slightly offensive, some of the things I've said, but also hopefully encouraging.
No, definitely. It's more encouraging than defensive.
That's for sure. The scales that way. That's good.
But for anyone that wants to do real estate, is there any way that people can reach you? Where can they find you?
I guess I probably got a bad habit of not promoting myself as much as I should.
Well, since this is going to be out there,
a quick plug.
Yeah.
We got a family company called 3% Realty in Vernon. We kind of cover Kelowna to Salmon Arm. So it's we got the elephant as our logo. So we just help people look for the elephant.
There it is.
Yeah.
3% Realty.
That's the day job.
That's the day job. Justin Vanderham, if anyone wants to know. And where we could find you is here in Vernon, 3% Real Estate.
Yeah, everything's online now, so it's pretty. It's oddly easy to find some people now, but in my case, it's a good thing. So.
And we see you on YouTube.
Yeah, I got to get back to some YouTube videos.
Yeah, 100%. I'm waiting for some more.
Right.
All right, man. Well, thank you,
Cool.
Justin. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You guys have a good one.
See ya.